Just a few days ago, doctors were hesitant and grim as they told his family that recovery wasn't guaranteed. Fans were left in shock, glued to their screens anxiously awaiting updates on their beloved rapper's condition. His mother was devastated and had been pleading for prayers, while close friends feared the worst. Lil Scrappy's journey has been a heartbreaking battle filled with uncertainty, fear, and moments when hope seemed like a distant dream. In a shocking and unexpected turn of events, doctors have finally given the all clear. Scrappy's condition is improving, and he's proving to be stronger than anyone could have predicted. The news sent shockwaves through the industry, leaving everyone wondering how this happened. Social media was flooded with messages of concern, rumors, and even whispers that he might never return to the life he once knew. Prepare yourself because we're going to delve into the specifics of Scrappy's amazing comeback, including the emotional responses from his family and fans, as well as the behind-the-scenes drama that nearly changed everything. Lil Scrappy fans had spent restless nights checking their feeds in the hopes of receiving positive news, the grim updates, and the heartfelt requests from his family. It all started late last night when a close family friend who had been by Scrappy's bedside leaked a mysterious message online saying, "Miracles happen when you least expect them." They continued to pray, and within minutes, people started to speculate that Scrappy was waking up and that the doctors had changed their assessment. This created a sense of hopelessness, but now the entire situation had turned upside down. The rapper, who had previously been clinging to life, had suddenly shown remarkable signs of improvement. Although there were no official confirmations yet, the excitement was growing until early this morning when Scrappy's mother, Mama D, finally shared a video. Her eyes were red and her voice was shaking, but this time it wasn't out of sadness, but rather relief. My baby's fighting. He's stronger than they thought," she said, barely holding back tears. The doctors had just informed us that Scrappy's had it. After days of despair, hope had returned, but behind the scenes, things were more complicated than they appeared. Although the doctors were hopeful, they were also cautious, and Scrappy wasn't out of the woods yet. His journey back to full health would be anything but easy for Scrappy's loved ones. The internet exploded with messages of joy and disbelief from celebrities, fellow rappers, and fans. Just 2 nights ago, the family had almost given up because of the unbearable emotions. His condition had been getting worse, and some doctors thought his body might not respond to treatment. The hospital room was tense, with hushed conversations, silent prayers, and the overwhelming fear of losing him forever. Bambi Scrappy's estranged wife had been going through a difficult time before his hospitalization, but that didn't matter anymore. She had been by his side, watching the monitors and whispering encouraging words, even when he was unconscious. She reportedly told a friend, "I don't care about anything else. I just want him to be okay." Meanwhile, his mother, Mama D, had been a formidable opponent, fighting valiantly to get the best doctors, the best care, and the best prayers. At one point, she even got into a fight with hospital staff. According to an insider, she had yelled at a doctor, "You don't give up on my son. I don't care what the numbers say. He's a fighter." And she wasn't mistaken. Scrappy was retaliating in ways that had astounded even the most seasoned medical professionals. The turning point came early in the morning when Scrappy, who had been unconscious for days, suddenly showed movement. Not much, just a slight twitch of his fingers, but the doctors saw it as evidence that his body was finally responding. And by midday, even more progress had been made. Scrappy had opened his eyes for a brief moment, and although he was still weak, he was aware of his surroundings. A nurse who had been keeping a close eye on him described how he initially appeared confused, as if he was trying to figure out where he was, but then his eyes fell on his mother, and I swear there was recognition there in the news. The doctors who had been preparing the family for the worst now had a different message. He's not out of danger, but there is real hope. One of them commented that his vitals are stabilizing, and if this happens, his daughter, who had been too young to comprehend the seriousness of the situation, was finally allowed to see him. She held his hand and whispered, "Daddy, wake up." While everyone was celebrating Scrappy's progress, there was still a significant obstacle in the way of his full recovery. His body was weak, and his road to recovery would be long and uncertain. In the midst of all of this, tensions within his inner circle and family were starting to rise, and not everyone was in agreement about what should happen next. His medical team had a strict M, who had always been a significant influence in Scrappy's life, felt that his recovery should be focused on spirituality because it is a miracle, and we should treat it as such. She informed the family that she had already contacted a number of pastors and spiritual healers to warn them to be involved in the process, but Bambi wasn't having it and wanted a purely medical approach. This isn't the time for experiments. He needs science. He needs rehab. He needs professional care, she said. Their argument escalated into a heated argument that almost resulted in a full-on altercation in the hospital. Meanwhile, Scrappy's close friends had their own worries, some of them thinking that once he recovered, he intended to cut out certain people from his life who had only brought drama and negativity if he survived. One of his old friends said, he needs a fresh start, no more toxic energy. Then there was the matter of Scrappy himself. He was barely conscious now, but as he began to regain his strength, he had to make decisions about his future. Would he follow his mother's advice, make amends with Bambi, or take a completely different route that no one had anticipated? One thing was for sure, though. This story was far from ending at Scrappy's hospital. Even though his condition had improved and the doctors were now cautiously optimistic, the battle for control over his recovery was intensifying behind the scenes. His mother, Mama D, his estranged wife, Bambi, and his close friends all had differing opinions about what was best for him, and as Scrappy gradually regained consciousness, he was going to wake up to a storm of drama that had been building. The whole room froze when Scrappy, who had barely been able to keep his eyes open the day before, suddenly found his voice. It was weak, barely above a whisper, but when he spoke, the tension in the room skyrocketed. Mama D, who had been sitting by his side for hours, looked like she had just been slapped. Meanwhile, Bambi, who had been outside in the hallway, rushed in the moment she heard his voice. "I'm right here," she said, tears. She took his hand and squeezed it tightly, saying, "I'm here, Scrap, I'm here." His eyes opened, and for the first time since his condition deteriorated, he'd appeared to be fully aware of his surroundings, but the moment was brief as everyone left. He mumbled, his voice hoarse, but his words were clear. "I need to talk to Bambi alone." A heavy silence descended upon the room, and Mama D's face darkened. His side every single day, fighting for him, refusing to give up, and now the first thing he wanted was to be alone with Bambi's Scrappy baby. "I believe we showed no mama," he interrupted, and this time he was a little stronger. Reluctantly, everyone shuffled out of the room, but not before Mama D gave Bambi a look that could kill her. Although some sources claimed that Scrappy had been spotted with other women, others suggested that Bambi had already moved on. However, with Scrappy fighting for his life, none of that seemed to matter the moment she saw him weak and vulnerable. Scrappy's relationship with Bambi had been on the rocks during their bitter separation, with rumors circulating about arguments, betrayals, and even possible infidelity. Bambi whispered, "You scared me, Scrappy. You scared all of us." And Scrappy looked at her. "You scared me. Scrap, you scared all of us." Anger, all the resentment, it vanished, she realized. But didn't he feel the same way inside the hospital room? Scrappy took a deep breath, wincing slightly from the pain. His body was weak, but his mind was sharper than ever. "I thought I was done for him admitting that." Bambi's breath caught in her throat as Scrappy gazed at her, his eyes full of something she couldn't quite read. "I don't know what's going to happen after this, but I need to know, are we done?" Before all of this, she had been convincing herself that their marriage was over for days, but now things felt different. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I just know that I don't want to lose you." But before Scrappy could answer, the door burst. Bambi stood up, fire in her eyes, saying, "Pardon me, I've been here just as much as you have, If anyone has a right to talk to him, it's me. Mama D stormed back into the room, refusing to let Bambi take charge of the situation. Enough of this, she said, snapping. You need rest, you don't need stress, and you definitely don't need to be dealing with this right now. Mama D laughed coldly. Oh, well, now you care? Where was all this energy when you were crying at each other? Another part before he became ill. Where was all this love while you were out doing God knows what? Bambi clenched her fists, but before she could respond, Scrappy moaned, Can't you guys stop doing this right now? Both women fell silent, but the atmosphere was filled with animosity. Although Scrappy was recuperating, his family was on the edge of disintegration outside the room, and some of his close friends were joining Mama D because they thought Bambi was only present because Scrappy's condition had drawn attention from others, who believed Mama D was being controlling and refusing to acknowledge that her son had a life of his own. Just when things were getting out of control, a surprise visitor arrived, someone no one had anticipated seeing, and just as the tension between Bambi and Mama D reached its zenith, the hospital door opened and a face no one had anticipated, that of Erica Dixon, Scrappy's ex-partner, and the mother. When M saw his first child, she practically glowed. This is the woman who truly has his back, she said loud enough for Bambi to hear. Bambi rolled her eyes, but Erica ignored them both and went straight past the drama to Scrappy's room. Scrappy looked up at her, his face flashing with surprise. What are you doing here? Erica asked, folding her arms. I heard you were in bad shape. I wasn't about to let. The father of my daughter faced this lonely, Scrappy side. He hadn't spoken to Erica in months, but he secretly wasn't shocked when she appeared. No matter how tumultuous their past was, she always managed to show up when it mattered. Thank you, he said simply outside the room, while Bambi was furious. Oh, so now she cares, she muttered under her breath, Mama. Unlike some people, Erica's family has always been there, and Scrappy was stuck. As Scrappy's strength gradually returned, it became evident that this was only the beginning of a whole new battle. At the moment, however, none of that mattered because his mind was already racing with a new concern regarding his career. Would he ever be able to perform again? Could he return to making music? Scrappy lay in his hospital bed, his body still weak, but his mind racing despite his exhaustion. He was stronger than ever, and Erica's sudden arrival had only made matters worse by rekindling old wounds and tensions that had never really subsided. Mama D was practically celebrating by pretending to be Erica with Scrappy's actual support system, while Bambi was barely controlling her rage. In the midst of all of this, Scrappy found himself doubting everything, and Erica said softly, You don't have to worry about this right now. Ignoring the stares from the hallway, she pulled up a chair next to him and concentrated on getting better. Scrappy was rubbing his forehead, and he wasn't just talking about his health. He was also talking about his life, marriage, family, and career. Everything seemed to be hanging by a thread. Bambi, who had finally had enough of waiting outside, stepped back into the room and said firmly, We need to talk. Mama D was standing in the doorway, smirking like she was waiting for a fight by herself. Bambi added, You want me to go? Erica looked at Scrappy, who hesitated and then gave her a small nod. Yeah, let me handle this. Erica stood up and walked past Bambi, giving her a knowing look as she went. Bambi ignored it, not wanting to let either Erica or Mama D turn this into another fight. Because of the way your mom has been acting and the way Erica just walks in here like she still belongs in your life, I don't know where I fit in anymore. Scrappy sat down on the edge of his bed and her expression softened. Now, Scrap, do you even want me here? Scrappy frowned. I don't know where I fit in anymore. Scrappy exhaled slowly. He detested how complicated everything had become before his health scare with Bambi. I don't know what's going to happen with us, he admitted, but I do know that you being here means something. Bambi bit her lip, but was it enough? Before Scrappy could respond, the door suddenly opened again. This time it was one of his closest friends, Diamond, who looked frantic and panted. We had a problem, Scrappy moaned, and Diamond hesitated. When she said, They're talking about replacing you, Scrap. Scrappy's eyes widened before she answered, her voice low. They're saying they don't know if he'll be able to bounce back, and they don't want to take any chances. They're already scouting for someone else. A heavy silence descended on the room, and Bambi looked at Scrappy with panic flashing in her eyes. They can't do that. You're not even out of the hospital yet. Diamond side business don't wait, Bambi, she said. Need to know whether Scrappy will be able to perform again, and they're not so sure right now. Scrappy clenched his jaw, saying, I need to talk to them. He said, I need to talk to them, firmly. Diamond shook her head. Not in your condition. You need to focus on getting stronger first. But Scrappy wasn't hearing it. If the label believed he was done, he had to prove them wrong. He grunted and began to sit up, wincing from the pain, but Bambi quickly stopped him by placing a hand on his chest. Scrap, no, you're not ready. I won't have a choice, he said, adding that if I don't fight for my spot, they'll take it from me. Mama D, who had been listening, entered the room with fire in her eyes and said, Ain't nobody replacing my son. I'll call up those fools myself if I have to. Mama D rolled her eyes. It's a broken marriage, but that hasn't stopped you from trying, has it? Mama D shot back, and Scrappy moaned, his head pounding now, and everyone fell silent as he spoke in a strained voice. I'm not sure what will happen with me and Bambi, and I'm not sure if the label will stay with me, but I do know one thing. I haven't done it yet. Bambi reached for his hand again, squeezed it, and then struggled for it. It wasn't going to be easy. There were still battles to fight and people waiting to see if he could make it through, but one thing was certain. Scrappy wasn't giving up. Scrappy's journey has been a roller coaster of emotions, but after so many struggles, it finally got better. He looked at her first, then at his mother, and finally at Diamond for the first time in weeks. This story is far from over, and we'll be here to bring you every twist and turn. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments. It looks like there's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. The doctors have given hope, but the battle isn't over yet. Will Scrappy make a full comeback and prove everyone wrong? Will his music career survive the doubts? What about his relationships? Can he truly move forward without more drama? Here, and be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications if you don't want to miss the next update on Scrappy's recovery.